Maybe
Thank you. Thank you.
We should get a picture.
Though, for Tom Oliphant and Curtis Wilkie. Tom Oliphant was born in Brooklyn, and he graduated from high school in La Jolla, California, and he later graduated from Harvard University. Curtis was born in Greenville, and he grew up in Summit, Mississippi, and he graduated from Corinth High School and later the University of Mississippi. He then went on to work at the Clarksdale Press Register and then the News Journal in Delaware, where he covered the first of 8 presidential campaigns. In 1975, he joined the Boston.
John Kennedy burst on the national scene that day and nearly won the nomination. He lost in the end. Very dramatic roll call that went on and on. It's the last time there have been multiple roll calls at a national convention. It's pretty amazing. And so I got the idea 10 or 12 years ago of writing a book about that afternoon. And I put together a proposal, and no publisher was really interested.
Curtis's story here is important because it goes to the essence of what this thing is that we've produced. The one thing I think we learned from talking to Ted Sorensen a lot before he died a few years ago was that what he and Kennedy did, they basically invented modern presidential politics, sort of on the fly, right, Curtis? Basically on the fly. And all the elements of the system you see today, good and bad, by the way, are traceable to that period between 1956 and 60, when the campaign actually unfolded. Secondly, because Kennedy started running as like a blank slate, somebody who'd essentially done nothing as a senator, wasn't even particularly known for his views. Because he had this blank slate, he had to fill it in if he was going to run for president. And rather than fill it in with slogans, he actually went to work, thought through the major questions of the day, and came out with ideas that are still with us.
Tightrope that JFK had to walk between the South and the black vote in the North. And for some of you would remember the South and politically 60 years ago, but it's changed dramatically. And in 1960, of course, there was virtually no Republican Party down here, and it was controlled by Democrats who were conservative Democrats, and blacks, for all practical purposes, couldn't vote here. Kennedy's views on civil rights were largely unformed at the time. He was from Boston, where there were not that many blacks who lived there. He had nothing to do with them. But as a northern liberal, he generally tried to vote right. And yet he had friendships with the old bulls from the South in the Senate. People like Jim Eastland. He would go and drink whiskey with Eastland in the evening. Even then, he was plotting this idea of running for president. And so the South was then, a competitive region. Also, a little quiz here. In 1960, who knows who Mississippi voted for? Where did our electoral votes go in 1960? Did they go for Kennedy or Nixon?
Unpledged.
Okay. And Al Paval goes to the head of the class. And who led the unpledged electors? It's Governor Ross Barnett.
And Patterson brought with him the head of the White Citizens Councils in Alabama. And African Americans around the country noticed stuff like this, right, in the spring. And so this tightrope that Curtis describes, it was very real. and he tried to walk it, but I think you can see in Kennedy, at least as we describe him, the beginnings of the most significant evolution in his life toward being a supporter of the civil rights movement. He wasn't there in the beginning, it took him a while. He came from the wrong background, he temporized, he did a lot of things that were very questionable, but he kind of got there in the end. But it's one of the leitmotifs of this whole story, because not only did whites in the South help elect John Kennedy, get him 303 or 306 electoral votes, depending on how you count. African Americans in the North also did. And several of those states that tipped in the final 2 weeks, New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Illinois, thank you, Mayor Daley. Agree for discussion purposes. What's so interesting about this is the importance to the local figure.
We basically divided chapters, and which chapter that one of us might feel a little more comfortable with would take responsibility to write the first draft, and then it would go to the other one, and he would go through it. We used to say in typewriter days, you'd run it through his typewriter, and then he'd kick back to, let's say, if I wrote the first draft, come back to me, and I would tinker with it and send it back to him. We did that with every chapter.
So when we were done, we could have a night at Square Books. The only reason to write a book that I know of that has any validity.
Yeah, this is our first appearance with the book. Publication date was yesterday. This is our. We chose this. It's one. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say on a personal note is that as a lot of you know, I lost my wife Nancy in the process of this, and Tom and Susan were great source of strength through all of that. But the book had to be dedicated to someone, and Tom said to me, says, look, there should be no question that this book should be dedicated to only one person, and that's to Nancy. And so I appreciated that very much.